Good day, everyone. My name is Sisanda Tembani from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. And I'm with Ziphozonke, my colleague today. We'll be giving you guys a presentation on herbicides, government, and the people. Apologies. So firstly, to begin with, I'll just share a bit of background on how far the department has come with regards to the alien invasive species projects by sharing the budget allocations thus far. So under Working for Water, there's been an allocation of 1 billion rand for terrestrial projects, and also 42 million for the aquatic weeds and projects. And then with the rope access projects, which refers to the high altitude projects, there's been a budget allocation of 65 million. Also, with emerging species projects, 21 million rands was allocated, and then working on fire was allocated a budget of 556 million, working for wetlands with 135 million. And then there was 80 million and 10 million for working for ecosystem services and working for forests, respectively. So this is just mainly a depiction of a land cover of the invasive alien plants, where biocontrol is being applied and where we are currently working on, with the red, orange, and the light green areas being the areas where we're currently working on, basically. And then, so the department is, as the designated authority for the clearing of alien plants and invasive species, is trying to align its processes and how it manages the species by using the international legislation. It's trying to align itself to the international legislation. So I'm going to share the regulations basically that it's trying to use in its implementation plans. So firstly, it's a Rotterdam Convention under Annexure 3. That's where it's focusing on. And then there's the PICs, which is the prior informed consent. So basically this mainly helps the countries to make informed decisions with regards to the imports and the banning of the restricted pesticides. So it mainly gives leeway, or it gives an opportunity for countries to be able to determine what species or what herbicides they get to use in clearing and managing their alien invasive plants. There's Stockholm Convention with the persistent organic pests. And basically what it entails is to eliminate and restrict the use and manufacturing of these POPs. There's the Basel Convention as well, which is mainly for the control of transboundary movements of herbicides, of hazardous wastes and their disposals. Then lastly, it's the Bamako Convention. So with the Bamako Convention, it's mainly a regulation that is specifically for the African continent, which helps in the prohibiting of the import of any hazardous wastes. Next up, I'll be sharing the pesticides with unmanageable risks. So this is basically pesticides that have carcinogenic impacts or effects on the people that get to use them. So basically there would be the endocrine disrupting properties, so pesticides with endocrine disrupting properties, which are in short known as the EDPs. Then there is persistent organic pollutants, the POPs. Then you get carcinogenic and immunotoxic potential pesticides there, which fall under or belong under Class 1A herbicides, which are highly hazardous there. And then you have highly hazardous under Class 1B. And then there's pesticides with frequent and severe poisoning incidents, which are arsenic and are categorized under category 2A of the species. So basically with these unmanageable pesticides or pesticides with unmanageable risk, the idea is that there gets to be a substitution or an elimination of these pesticides, or to try and use pesticides that are much more safer. But then in the event that you can't manage a herbicide or a pesticide, then there's no a reason, or you shouldn't even try to mitigate a pesticide if you can't manage it. And then next up is a slide with the tree tables that we are currently trying to work on. So firstly, I've got the World Health Organization table, which shows the classifications under World Health Organization. There's the International Agency for Research on Cancer table, which shows the classifications and categories there. And then the third one is the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of pesticides there. So basically, I'll speak on the WHO classification table and the GHS. So currently, nationally, we're using the WHO classification. But the issue with the WHO classification is the fact that its labeling system is used in such a way that there's only color coding that is used for that. And so because of the color blindness that our people tend to have, then it becomes difficult for people to sometimes identify between or distinguish between the highly hazardous pesticides and those that are not so much hazardous there, which could potentially not cause cancer there. So currently there's a move from the WHO classification to the GHS there, in which the GHS is much more it's precautionary enough for people to be able to identify, because on its labels it uses not only colors as the WHO does, but it also would classify that this type of pesticide it's a carcinogenic, and it is a dermal tox, or it would affect maybe when inhaled, then it would cause cancer on them. So it's much easier for people when the labels on pesticides have got colors, and then there's also a like a specific saying that this is the impact that would get in the event that you use that pesticide, basically. And then, so this is just an extract from the environmental pesticide policy. In this policy, so Debbie Meir, who is my supervisor, has created sort of a pesticide policy for the environmental programs, and this is an extract from the pesticide policy. Basically, as you can see, it shows the chemical formula of a pesticide, and also what active ingredients does that pesticide has. It also shows the HROC herbicide group of that, and also what the classification is under the World Health Organization classification. The National Resources Management Pesticide Policy was mainly updated in the year 2012, and it is continuously under review because not all pesticides have been listed as yet. But there's progress in that. So it's being reviewed gradually, and it covers all herbicides that are used and those that are legally allowed to be used. Then certain herbicides are not covered by this policy. In other words, they're not listed in the pesticide policy. And an example of that is MSMA, because it has carcinogenic effects. It's a biotox, and so it is not encouraged that it becomes a herbicide that is used. Also, there's biopesticides that are preferred under the policy. with Cylindrobacium larvae, which has the wood-rotting fungus under acacias. And also it includes agreed control measures when people are handling or using the pesticides. Natural Environmental Management Act also encourages the implementation of comprehensive pesticide reduction strategies, the substitution of principles which would help to promote pesticides with lesser toxic ones, and that is to move to more safer pesticides to use that won't cause any cancerous effects on people that get to use them. It also is reviewing the existing registrations of pesticides. That is where the elimination and substitution comes in, which helps to eliminate those that are highly toxic. Also, the waste management, which includes the emptying of containers and absolute chemicals there. Also, the department is responsible for herbicide container management as well, and this is under Section 4, subsection 5 of the Basel Act. Then we have the herbicide species spreadsheet, which is the sheet that is listing the herbicides that are legally allowed to be used. And this is a one-stop shop for the invasive alien plants control. And then we have CARA and NEMBA species. And then the spreadsheet contains 424 species that are listed under it. And it includes 14 treatment methods under the sheet. There's also formulations of about 31 that are listed on the spreadsheet. It contains 53 herbicides that are recommended for use, and then there's 13 biopesticides. It also has 3 herbicide categories under which species are listed. Then this is an extract or an example of how the spreadsheet looks like. For example, if we take, so the spreadsheet basically shows the species, it shows the genus of the species and also size class, how that species would be treated, that is, it shows the treatment methods as well. It also has the amount of dose of a herbicide, how much, depending on the pesticide that you're using, how much dose you would need of that pesticide and how much is recommended for use. There's also, it shows the percentage of the dye there, and also the liters per kilograms of how much of that should be used, and also the mixture, how much is to be mixed for a certain treatment of a herbicide. And then there's estimated products there for the use of the pesticide there. And then just to take an example of the genus Acacia, under the genus Acacia, there is seedling size class where foliar spray application is implemented there. Then, as you can see, there's trichopla as a butox ethyl, which is classified as a tox. So it does have toxic effects on when are used by people there. And I will hand over to my colleague. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Ziphozonke Fikeni. For short, you can use Zonke. I'll be carrying on from my colleague, just to cover how, just to highlight how the NRM pesticide policy enforces safety in our projects. So we employ and the presence of health and safety officers. We also give out toolbox talks in the field where EPWP participants are trained on how to mix pesticides safely. So we'll show them where to have a demarcated area where you actually store your pesticide while you're in the field, how to move it, how to mix it, wearing correct PPE, and highlight on chainsaw training and all that. We also work very closely with UCT in the research of herbicide toxicity. In addition to that, we're also working on updating our policy review in line with FAO on the PPE that is needed to protect our participants and human health. Also, we work very closely with other departments and with our compliance auditing directorate, which comes out to check if service providers are complying to our safety measures. Challenges that we face, there's a high rate of foliar applications, which tend to be very labor intensive, and they also carry other challenges to that. You know, with foliar application, there's spray drift, which causes challenges of falling over to water bodies and non-target plants. So we're trying to move away from that or minimize it by looking at alternatives, which is, of course, less on non-toxic pesticide use and different applications. In addition to that, recommendation of the correct PPE and staff wearing the correct PPE. So you'll find that if you're using a highly volatile pesticide in a warm place like Northern Cape, instead of just wearing a dust mask to protect your participant, you'd have to wear a more safer mask like an N95 to protect the participants when they're spraying the herbicide. So that's looking at correct PPE for a specific pesticide. Also, challenges that we face with is that herbicide companies do not disclose enough information with their adjuvant ingredients, so which cause problems for our water bodies and water resources. Ways that we've found to improve from our challenges is implementing and more research into mitigation risks, into measures of mitigating risk. Also, research outcomes, as I mentioned before, from the different universities that we work with. Awareness of potential risks of herbicides with such forums like the one that we had today, encouraging knowledge sharing within all people working in the invasive species forums, and then utilizing safer alternatives that will be our biocontrol, moving towards less dependence on the chemicals, and fires and brushing, more natural forms. We've also implemented the hierarchy of controls, which is, I'll show you a picture as we go along, where we try to eliminate, substitute the toxic pesticides with more friendly pesticides to the environment and human health. Also, it's very important for ESRA to be conducted per adjuvant, not per pesticide. And then again, just highlighting the moving from dependence of chemicals to more natural forms, utilizing biobeds, exclusion and buffer zones around our water bodies. So I've got a case study for you, a lot of successful ones, but I'll just show you one today. So the NRM, the EP pesticide policy, has used the hierarchy of controls. As I mentioned before, we look at a pesticide and then we try eliminate if it's toxic, as my colleague mentioned. Carcinogenic falls under all the HOO classifications. And then if we can't eliminate it, we try substitute it with a less toxic pesticide. That's where we'll ask the industry to try changing their formulations, and engineering controls, and the last one, PPE, which is the protective wear of our participants. So, using the hierarchy of controls and the precautionary principle, we've managed to eliminate 5 pesticides starting in 2010, substituted 6 pesticides and more. I'm trying to find the pointy. Okay, I'm sorry. I've substituted 6 pesticides and more. You'll see that Turbidor is substituted, which has been found to be more safer and less toxic than garland and diesel, which was overused in fact, and Impala Caput gel, which also encompasses the less spray drift and all that. It's just a gel that you apply. And we're currently working on engineering controls, which is formulating different pesticides and changing formulations. With the steps that we're taking, we've managed to mitigate risks and lessen impacts of pesticides with the new PPE policy, which we're trying to align with the FAO guidelines. Yeah, that's about it. In efforts to protect our human health and biomonitoring. So this is a picture of the Code of Conduct, International Code of Conduct on Pesticides Management. So it gives you guidelines and regulations on how to handle your pesticides from cradle to grave. So utilization of the pesticide, how to dispose of the containers safely, and all that. It's a go-to. You can find it online there. So overall, just to remind you of what I've covered in the presentation, it's very important to look at the pesticide spreadsheet, the one that Sisanda mentioned earlier, which is the one-stop shop, and choose the species you want to control. With that done, you look at the herbicide registered for that species and recommend the safer herbicide chosen. To ensure that you're covering your environmental risk and human health, it's important that you conduct risk assessments. So this is just one of our success stories in using biocontrol for black wattle, Melenterius, which is a seed feeder, and others. We've got like 15 biocontrol agents in controlling cacti. So overall, we're trying to promote the use of biocontrol over the dependence of chemicals. Thank you very much. I'll open the floor for questions and teamwork. Stian and everyone here is here to help. Thank you. There's a question.
We have a question over here from the floor. 2. Where's the mic? 3. Go on. Just in case people were wondering, we even have people watching Facebook Live all the way from Benin Republic in West Africa. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Nanette, just a member of the public, and I have a question about the use of herbicides on the removal of alien invasive plants. I've recently gotten involved in my community in removing or doing alien clearing, so I'm learning and observing. And what I found is mechanical means was quite effective, and both measures, herbicide and mechanical, is labor intensive, which is great, creates jobs. But my question is, to what extent are we using these herbicides, whether they're safe or not, for the purpose of just convenience as opposed to the actual need for it? For example, is there some information about which species, when, really can only respond to herbicide in order to eradicate it? Or if we really tried, can we do without it altogether?
Thank you for that. There are certain species that only a pesticide would work. But that's where we try to implement our hierarchy of control and precautionary principle in choosing the less toxic pesticide, encountering environmental risk, whether the pesticide is bioaccumulative, biomagnifying, and human health. So we also promote, where you said mechanical and pesticides work, so we also promote what we call integrated pest management. So that's where you work hand in hand. I'll give you an example that we were looking at in Joburg, water hyacinths in the Roodeplaat Dam. So that we would call an integrated pest management plan, where there is sub-lethal spraying of pesticides and manual removal and biocontrol on the dam.
You mentioned there are specific species that only respond to, I don't know if the word pesticides or herbicides should be used.
Herbicides.
Herbicides, yeah.
Yeah. Is there like hundreds, or can you name them on your hand? Or?
I think the Department of Agriculture has actually got a detailed list of them. But it also has to do with the size of the tree. Once mechanical removal becomes very difficult, then your herbicide is the way to go. We were at a talk in Kimberley. Prosopis is obviously a big thing in the Northern Cape. And that plant's root can go down up to 70 meters in the ground. So you can imagine it gets to a point where mechanical removal is very difficult. Yeah, do you have a pack?
I have a pack from Debbie.
Okay, so Debbie Sharp, who's the lady in charge of this department, has that information available.
Give it to me.
Okay, so what must we do, Kay?
Send me a note and I can send you a pack of everything you ever wanted to know about herbicides.
Okay.
How you use them, which ones are acceptable, which ones are not, what you use them for, how, this, that, and the other. It's a serious pack. 4 documents, and the Excel spreadsheet is 25 pages long.
Okay, there we go. Great answer.
And this is the extract of it.
I can send it by email to anyone who asks. When you arrived as a delegate, you've been getting messages from me all the time. My name is Kay Montgomery. My email is at the bottom of all the missives you've ever received. It's called kay@invasives.org.za. And if you just send me a note, I will send you this unbelievably complicated, scary-looking pack that the herbicide people have specially created for you.
So just remember, if you registered for this forum meeting, you've got all that information already on your PC at home. Sorry, gentlemen, you had a question. Here we go.
Yeah, it's Tom Robbins. It's a follow-up on that, because I recently, I attended the Stellenbosch meeting, and it was amazing to see how much work has been done in I don't know if the word is legislating and encouraging safer herbicides, and a lot of work has gone into it, but I found it very difficult to access this information, and I couldn't find it on the Invasives South Africa website. I don't know if it's a navigability thing, The speakers mentioned the one-stop shop.
Yeah,
So
the pesticide.
Where is it?
You can contact our office. We'll give it to Kay to give out, but this is just an abstract of it. So there'll be the pesticide you can use for the different species and everything.
Because like these things, they should be online, and it is inexpensive and easy to do, and also it'd be great to get that 25-page.
I will put it on the website as well.
Pack, but I think also that, there are a lot of people who are maybe beyond the 25-page thing. So I think a shorter kind of summary of the main culprits kind of thing would also be fantastic to see all that stuff. And then I also just wanted to confirm from the Stellenbosch meeting that a lot of these new regulations around safety and using herbicides, they do not apply to nursery sales, and consumers who are using them in a suburban garden. For example, I mean, it says Garlon is the most widely sort of displayed product, but from what I understand, it's not illegal. It's just not. It's no longer preferred.
Absolutely. So what you must remember, what we've just dealt with now, is there's a change in the regulations, which all herbicide manufacturers will have to change their labeling. If I'm not mistaken, it's by the end of October this year. So the amount of information on the packaging and on the information pamphlets will be to inform the consumer much better than what they have in the past. And, you know, this is a historical thing, and this is only because we as South Africa have been part of this international convention which said that we will follow these rules. It's the same way in the 1960s everybody was using DDT willy-nilly because anybody didn't know any better. Now we do, and together with that information, the user will now know what protective gear to wear. You know, is just a normal, what type of face mask, what gloves, do you need a full body suit when applying this? And, you know, you already have those instructions on the packaging. Unfortunately, people don't know how to read it. You get a green band pesticide, herbicide, what's the next one? A yellow, a blue, and then right at the top is red. Red you're not allowed to get on a shelf. That should be in a locked cabinet somewhere, literally, which isn't accessible to the public. So I think we're getting there. That's the bottom line.
Because, you know, you get volunteers, NGOs, whatever, to give up their Saturdays to go and hack. And,
yes.
You know, I personally, I feel worried that someone could get sick or something. You know?
Well, it's a real possibility. I did not know until a month ago that Garland 4 actually evaporates in temperatures higher than 25 degrees, which makes it, you know, not a great one to use if you're applying it in the Karoo in the middle of the day. So you need to apply it in the mornings when it's cooler. And now that we know there are, help me out, what is the replacement from Garland, which Debbie keeps on going out about? Turbidor. Turbidor is a much better product to apply. And of course the use of diesel, which only just acts as an absorption agent at the end of the day, is not great environmentally either. So I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Right. Last question here, then we're going to break for lunch, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi there. I would just like to know, I've worked in the scientific lab for the past 12 years. My question is regarding health and safety, but also regarding pesticides and herbicides in the lab environment. We're currently testing for aflatoxins in soya beans and maize. Is there a risk mitigation regarding those products? And with the tannic acid and the sulfuric acid being thrown into different wine categories, what is the risk factor by testing those products? Thank you.
Thank you.
Benny?
I don't have the total detail on the specifics of those, but you can call our office and you can come in anytime, set up an appointment, and we can look at per pesticide and per chemical and what you intend on using it for. Thank you.
And in which environment and what is required.
All of that, a risk assessment overall.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give these young ladies a round of applause.